Welcome to ConveYour on Learning and Development, where we discuss training concepts and emerging technologies in order to help business trainers level up their skills. So check out today's episode and then visit us at podcast.conveyor.com in order to find out how to join future conversations. Hey, this is Jason with ConveYour.com, and I want to welcome you to our inaugural season of ConveYour on Learning and Development. We realize that you could be doing so many other things with your time, but that you chose to listen to us today, so we want to make the most of your time. So I'll just break down what we're doing with these episodes for the season. We're going to be talking mostly with Stephen Rhyne, the president and founder of ConveYour, and he's going to really unravel his thoughts on micro-learning, on micro-training, on web-based training in order to help you level up in the field of learning and development. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in and start off this discussion. So hey Stephen, we've been talking about micro-learning quite a bit, and we do that within the company because you developed ConveYour as a micro-learning tool for trainers. And we started this podcast really with the intention of helping those who are in the business of educating and equipping their people. So in this episode, we're focusing on the user experience, and we're doing so because of this statement that you make all the time, which is, quote, "The training experience needs to be on par with digital consumer experiences," end quote. So I'm wanting to get you to elaborate on this idea. What do you mean when you say, again, quote, "The training experience needs to be on par with digital consumer experiences," end quote?
Yeah. So this whole trend for micro-learning, mobile learning has actually been driven by hardware. So it's actually all a trend as a result of the power that we now have on these devices, right? So mobile devices. Here's what I mean. Before we had a device like this, like these devices are basically doubling in power every would you say 2 to 3 years, something like that?
Yeah, easily.
Who is paying for that doubling?
We are.
I don't really think the companies are paying for that unless you have a company phone, but it's usually us.
Yeah.
And because the auspices of paying for that is on us, and we're doing the work to upgrade, the hardware for the entire company is actually being upgraded every 2 to 3 years because people are upgrading their devices.
Yeah.
So with that, it now means that like the user wants to consume business information on the most powerful device, right? So their own personal device. And that's what opened like the gate for users saying, look, I don't want to use like a computer labs. I don't want to go to my office and use some junky computer that I got that's 3 years old, even if it was a laptop that was given to me. I don't want to use their built-in browser that's like Internet Explorer 11 or something like that. I'm just going to use my own phone because it just runs better. And with that said, though, there is now like this implicit desire from the user to have whatever I'm accessing on my business information be on par or better, the experience be better than these other applications that are actually utilizing that hardware to its fullest extent. So we've got like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Think about those experiences. Like think about Amazon, the Amazon app. And users are not just going to give you a hall pass and just say, well, since it's a business product or it's a business information, I can assume that this isn't going to quite work, right? You have to basically assume that you're competing with those other consumer products. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it actually relates to the other thing that we were talking about, which is user experience and peak information. So would you mind talking about what you mean when you say peak information?
Yeah. So when I was telling you about this, like peak information, I'm kind of using an example of like peak oil, right? We have just a crazy amount of information online, and information is now just a commodity. It's actually too much information is the example of poor user experience, because we all know like doing a 15-minute presentation, like whittling that down to say the right things is so much harder than giving an hour's worth of presentation. That's an example of somebody taking time to make a really good user experience with the time that they have. And our time is becoming more and more limited with our consumers. Now, I'm using the word consumer because I'm talking about the people we're training, whether those be employees or your people you're consulting. Okay. So as our time gets lower, the culture is you don't have as much time with individuals to train them. So if you're coming with this expectation that you can just take them to the buffet and they're going to eat and they're going to be happy, just because you're giving them a whole bunch of information, that's a poor consumer experience. I'll give you an example. It's the same thing with consumer goods now. So if you take a commoditized product, okay, like some electronic good, right? What ends up winning? It's the best purchasing experience, the fastest experience. It's the one where I get the information and the review about that product as fast as possible. It's not the fries of the world where there are a million products where I have to go around and make decisions. It's the one where I have to spend the least amount of time and effort to get the product that I want, right?
Yeah.
The way this is all being driven is because these things are actually, we are already like cybernetic organisms. Like we're cyborgs. We just don't have, as Elon Musk would put it, like we don't have a high throughput. It's not connected to our brains yet, but it's in our hands all of the time, right?
Yeah.
So why do you see a huge trend in voice? Why do you see this big trend in voice activation and saying, Alexa, then and I spit out what I want? That's an example of where we're moving towards this trend of immediate gratification, increasing the throughput. Okay. So I'm rabbit holing a little bit, but I think what I'm saying is experience with your information, right? Shortening it, making it more effortful, making it more enticing, more compelling, more emotional, and using the window of time, maintaining learner trust, right? With them is what drives experience, makes them want to come back. Learner trust is huge. We haven't talked very much about that, and I'm just going to riff on that for a sec. So what I mean by learner trust is, again, you can offer up a ton of information, and it could be really good information. But if I hop in on my phone and I get this huge video and this big block of text, and I'm consuming this, maybe I consume it the first day. Then the next day comes around and you have more content, or next week. And what's the first thing that's going to pop into my head?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. You're like, oh, this is really good, but I don't have time for this. I'll come back later. Right?
Boring.
So it could be not boring information. Maybe it's a fantastic video, right? It's just that, do I need my experience to be like that to get the effect and the objective that I want for my training experience, right? The reason why we love podcasts, we love, Spotify, we love these experiences is because they're short, they're to the point, and they're on our own time during the day. It's asynchronous. And so this is what I'm talking about, is like getting your experience with your training to line up with the expectations that digital consumers have nowadays in other applications. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And regarding the user experience, what do you think it is about business culture, or even just our national culture, or even international culture, that has put us in this position where we need the user experience to be what it is?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the word I think about the two words I think of is like less conformity. So we live in a world now where we have more remote work, more of a gig economy, more contractors, less like company men or women, that are focused on staying at one company and being loyal to that company for a really long period of time. And with that comes either the lack of caring on social pressures or what other peers are doing, or they just intrinsically don't have those pressures because they're not in the office, they're not at a location, they have nobody really looking over their shoulder. So with a rise in that, we've seen this in universities, right? Like we've seen this with massive online learning classes and stuff. They had to experience the issue of they couldn't take the lecture model, with a professor and just put that online. It just didn't work. You had people that were going to say, I don't want to do this right now. I'll do it at midnight, or I'll do it at 4 a.m. You had a lot of, you're dealing with human behavior now, at like a massive level. And so now this is an example where learner experience needs to be treated more, especially in the area of training, needs to be more like you come with the assumption that you have zero attention. Like the attention meter resets for each learner every day. And you don't come with that assumption that, oh, well, they work for me, or I pay, I sign their paychecks, or this is important content, or I need them to know this, and all this stuff just goes right out the window. And all that your content has to land on its own 2 feet. The experience, like we talked about, the digital experience has to be stellar, so that they actually enjoy the experience. But at the same time, it's like, is this content aligned with what my motivations are personally? Like, how am I going to get value out of it in the first day, week, month? And we'll touch on this more like in the next time we have a call, because we talked about this, right? Learner experience is not just the digital experience, how great is the application, how does it look, but it's also like, does it align with what I want, as in what I'm doing? Like, do I want to take the time to learn this because it actually took the time? This person is being empathetic that's training me, and actually took the time to ask me if this aligns with where I want to go in my life, right? And doesn't make that assumption that I'm going to conform simply because of some disparate connection I have to them, right? So that's what I mean by really thinking. So learner experience, like twofold. We'll get to like kind of a summary here, but like learner experience is, fast, easy to access, mobile friendly, feels great, has beautiful design, all the things we talked about with this learning experience. But then also, I took the time to really understand my learner, and I took the time to not assume that they're going to consume this, right? I asked them about their consumption preferences. So those are the ways I think about it. I think more like a marketer when I'm helping people build out training experiences, right? Because in the end of the day, we're really just salespeople. Like it's more important to sell somebody on the experience and to get them hooked, to have motivation to finish out the training and get better completion rates. And the marketing automation world, right? These other applications have already done this work. Remember, we did that whole review of the Hooked book, right? They've already done all of the work of figuring out the psychology for us to have experiences that we enjoy and complete and keep coming back for. But I think the whole training world is just basically doesn't want to subscribe to some of those things. Wants to believe that it's more important to have some crazy kind of training experience that has a lot of bells and whistles, right? Then rather than taking the time to really focus on having it feel more like what people are used to on a day-to-day basis in Snapchat, right? So that's kind of soapboxing a little bit on that format. But yeah, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure to be able to ask these questions. And I'm looking forward to further conversations and discussions about micro-learning, learning and development, and the like. So again, this has been Jason with ConveYour, and I've been talking with Stephen Rhyne, the founder and president of ConveYour. You can find out more about the company at ConveYour.com. It's ConveYour, ConveYour.com. You can also check us out at podcast.conveyor.com. Again, thanks for listening today to ConveYour on learning and development. Until next time, keep up the good work.